Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 31st day, last day of July. Wow. You know, August, we're going to have preseason football. 1 month from today, it will be Labor Day weekend games. Miami will play Florida exactly 1 month from the day, August the 31st. Cannot wait. Going to be a really good opening game here. Got a lot I want to talk about tonight. Pete Rose, there was a documentary on Pete Rose, the legendary, the all-time hit leader. A lot of my younger audiences may not have heard of Pete Rose. Rose was finishing up his career when I just started watching baseball, on and off of very seldom at 89. But good documentary on him. Got a lot I want to say about that. Couple lessons learned about the Pete Rose documentary and watching that and whatnot. Also, Hard Knocks ended today. The Giants, but it's, you know, I'll talk about it after the break, but it's definitely by far the best version of Hard Knocks because it gives you an insight of what the front office is thinking, what the general manager has to run by everybody, including the owner. Really good stuff here. Also, college football news. There's some college football news I wanted to talk about. Story that broke last week about a scholarship reduction. Plus, I want to talk about a few teams that I think that'll make the playoff. Nobody's really talking about, not your usual suspects. I'm going to do that over probably the next few weeks and definitely give you my, not tonight, of course, give you my full 12-team playoff at some point. Going to give you two teams today. I do think that they're going to, nobody's really thinking about they're going to make this playoff. Then again, they might. I don't know. But either way, got a lot to talk about tonight. Good to see you. Pickles out there. Says Pete Rose was better than Ty Cobb. He beat Ty Cobb's hit record there. Ty Cobb's got a lot of records in the Major League Baseball. It's a great documentary. I'll get on to that in a little bit. Let's take our first and only break. Got a few announcements here. Got a few announcements from Mac and the National Stream of Sports folks. And I'll be back here shortly. We'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. Thanks. To get the National Streaming Sports channel on your Roku TV, channel search National Streaming Sports. There's the channel search in Roku. There's our logo right on the right, NESSP. Tap on the logo and it will add to your TV, the channel to your TV. On your laptop, tablet, and mobile phone, download the free Roku app and channel search just like above. If you don't have Roku TV, you have to order a Roku device from the Roku store, hook it up to your smart TV, and bang, you have Roku TV. Again, channel search, National Streaming Sports. Click on our NESSP logo and add the channel.
All righty then, I'm back here. Max, giving everybody a little heads up on how to get the Roku access there. Good stuff there. Appreciate that. You need a tutorial on everything nowadays. There's so much technology out there, folks. You know. Anyways, again, this Giants Hard Knocks is by far, Pickles, by far the best Hard Knocks it's ever. Hard Knocks been on for over 20 years. You say, why? Because you know what the teams are thinking. Why do they pick this guy? Why do they pick? Last night's episode goes into the actual draft, okay? They got a guy, Pickles, 6'7", out of Penn State, this tight end. And I thought to myself, yeah, Theo Johnson, this guy could be a major, major sleeper in the NFL next year if Brian DeBall, the head coach, can scheme up the right plays for Daniel Jones to get him the ball. 7 touchdowns last year, 34 catches, 341 yards. I mean, this guy's huge. You know, went in the 4th round. Maybe they think he's too big, not fast. But I hear he ran a 4.5. So I don't know why he dropped all the way to the 4th round. Maybe he's not the best blocker in the world. It didn't come up. Means no, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. But so we're going back to April, all right? The NFL draft is just where this thing takes place, episode 5 here. And what happens is they go with the calls, okay? The 5 pick is in, and Brian DeBall, I'm painting a picture for y'all. The head coach is like, please don't be neighbors. Please don't. It's just like what you would think, Pickles. It's just like what you think. Like anybody but neighbors. Anybody but neighbors. And that's the ball. And you got the whole war room in there. Of course, you got Joe Shea. Man, he was on pins and needles. That dude was on pins and needles. I mean, you got the owner in there. You got the whole scouting staff in there. And when the Chargers says Joe Alt, you just, and then everybody looks at the general manager, Joe Sheehan, and he says, let's wait this thing out. Let's see if we get any calls. First call, bring, Ballard, Chris Ballard, general manager of the Colts, holding the 15th pick. And you're hearing these numbers. It didn't get all the numbers in there, but, you know, Colts are at 15. Giants are at 6. Giants are really headstrong on Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors. Harrison's already off the board. Remember, he went 4 to Arizona. And he says, I don't want to go down that far. Hangs the phone up. Bling. Rings again. It's the Giants. Joe Douglas. Now, this one's a little bit more interesting. Joe Douglas is at Joe Douglas in the Jets, excuse me, team that plays in the same stadium. They're sitting there at 10, which is still pretty good, you know. They're sitting there at 10. He starts talking to Hard Knocks, didn't give all what he was asking for. Hard Knocks did not give that. They didn't give the whole what he was offering, excuse me. They did not give the whole package that was up, but to go down from 6 to 15, there ain't no telling what the Colts offered. You know, I'll tell you what, give me Quentin Nelson, give me a 1st round pick next year and a 3rd round this year. You can come on up to 6, you know. Let's see how that works. Of course, that didn't happen. After Sheehan hangs up with Joe Douglas of the Jets, they pick up the phone. The camera's already on. The camera's already on Malik Neighbors with all this. I mean, Neighbors stands out like a sore thumb. Like, if you see Malik Neighbors from across the street, you'd be like, That guy's an NFL wide receiver. All that jury, all that gold, 6'3" plus, bang. And you can tell the fans just loved it. They absolutely loved it. They didn't even think twice about getting a J.J. McCarthy or anybody of that nature. So they went on and take Malik Neighbors here. Or Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors here. And they were high-fiving like the night was over with. So, and then Sheehan makes a really good comment. He's like, listen, this is what I've been saying. It's not just me saying this. He says these receiver contracts are ballooning. They're like the housing bubble, Pickles. It's going to burst. But let me play what he says instead of what I'm saying, right? Here we go.
Scouting and endless analysis have yielded exactly what the Giants wanted. A genuine game changer at a bargain price.
When you look at what some of these wide receivers are making now, and the APY of the wide receivers is going through the roof right now. So if you have a young 20-year-old player that's explosive and can upgrade our offensive ability to score touchdowns, that's cost controlled over a 5-year period, it makes you feel really good.
That's cost controlled over a 5-year period can make you feel really good. Now that, again, $30 million to $34 million for these top end wide receivers. Now that may be what he want to get later on down the road. Well, then again, Neighbors, it may be 40 something in 5 years from now. Go figure. But it goes back to what I was saying the other day on this program. You know, you get a guy like a Saquon Barkley for $12.5 million. That's a pass catcher and a runner between the tackles. If you could get him for 17 games, that's a bargain and a half. And also, what have I said before on this program in the past? Ideally, I would like to have a guy like a Neighbors on my team until that big contract comes up. Then I want to get another Malik Neighbors caliber player in his second year, not a first year. There's too much of a learning curve for a rookie. I don't care how good they are, although Jamar Chase was pretty good as a rookie. You would like to have his replacement in there. You said, well, where are you going to spend that money? Well, I'm going to spend on the offensive line. I want to have the best line in football every year. And also, do you ever really see an offensive lineman hold out in the middle of the season for wanting more money or hold out? I mean, yeah, I know Zach Martin held out for a little bit, but it's very rare that the offensive linemen get that kind of ego where they sign a contract, 3 years goes by, and 4 or 5 other receivers, just because it's the natural growth of the game, make more money than you. Then you want to hold out like a Terrell Owens when you just signed one. Yeah, Pickle says CeeDee Lamb's going up and you know, the more I think about the CeeDee Lamb contract, and I disagree with what others say, and I want to say it was Jerry Jones, but don't quote me on it. It was him or somebody else that said it's better to sign a player in the offseason than it is in season. I totally disagree with that, because shows like mine and some of the bigger shows in the offseason, we zoom in on these contracts, you know, because we're not talking about the game itself because the game's out of season. But if they would have extended CeeDee Lamb, say around week 10 last year, they could probably save $25 to $30 million over the length of that contract. Now, with a guy like DJ Moore just signed an extension, $86 million guaranteed, 4 years added on, which I think is a pretty good deal if you think about it. DJ Moore now with the Bears, very consistent player, shows up, does his job, goes home, minds his own freaking business. That's the kind of player I want. With that being said, sometimes receivers particularly, things seem to be going well. The guy's quiet. They do their job. They sign that next contract, they turn into a total diva. You know, never heard any problems out of Antonio Brown until he signed his second contract and then he went, you know, he went nuts there, you know. So anyways, so my thing is that's a position that you want to pay rarely. You need it, but if you can avoid it and keep it on rookie contract, that's what I'd recommend. I'd rather have best offensive line in football, even if I got to pay guards a lot of money. I don't care. Center guard, left tackle, we already know that leaves without saying. Defensive tackle, the best I can get for the money, Chris Jones, and one edge rusher, and the quarterback, and everybody else pretty much extendable. Maybe I keep a tight end, a George Kittle type of guy, especially one that can block on the line. Then I'll do that. Other than that, everybody else would be rookie contract possible, not unless the second contract is decent, you know, not unless it's decent for a safety or a corner or something like that. But if it's crazy, let them go. They better be elite, you know. But that's just general basic thinking for me, in my perspective. Okay, so they got neighbors there, and so they got the top safety off the board here. They get the first safety taken off board. This guy Tyler Newman from Minnesota. Nobody called them to move down. They're really happy with it. We'll see how it plays out. I don't know if I'd have taken a safety that high, but he looked really good for him being from Minnesota and being drafted that high when people are not really big in the safeties these last 5-6 years as far as being drafted high. Now, I'm from an era where safeties were drafted really high at one point. Sean Taylor was drafted in the top 10. You know, there have been Jamal Adams as a Tennessee Titan. He was number 6 overall. That was in 2016, but not lately, though. Not lately. And then, of course, Theo Johnson, I just mentioned him at the beginning of the program, tight end out of Penn State, 6'7". Remember, Darren Waller retired. So part of me, just by watching this front office, I'm fascinated to see with how Brian DeBall schemes up ways to get a guy like Malik Neighbors. You hit the ground running with him. I would scheme him open, kind of like the way that Cincinnati schemed up Jamar Chase in that offense, where he got a lot of receiver screens at the line of scrimmage. If you got to get him an end around, get him an end around. If you got to give him a shovel pass, him running behind the line of something that Daniel Jones can't screw up is what I'm trying to get at. Get him at least, Pickles, 10 touches a game. He's that good a player, you know. He's a wow factor guy. He could be better than Odell Beckham. Now, I didn't like that video that circulated of him at that strip club. It looked like 10. I didn't like that. But as far as the film on him, go up and grab the ball and try. And you know, I've already played it last week where the ball says, I think he's the best. I like him better than Marvin Harrison. Most people like Marvin Harrison better. Harrison's got the pedigree, got the dad coaching. I don't know. He's turned into somewhat of a diva. Harrison has. We got to let that play out. The problem with Arizona is Kyler Murray can't stay healthy. He's just too small. We'll have to let that one play out. But overall, very good. Again, Hard Knocks, front office. If you're listening, folks, bring that back. It's the best. Hard Knocks will be the regular Hard Knocks, by the way. We're about a week away next Tuesday from the regular Hard Knocks with the Bears coming up next Tuesday, okay? Then you got the in-season Hard Knocks from the AFC North starting around December 8th, covering the whole AFC North. That's the Ravens, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. People may be calling for Tomlin at some point. And, of course, you got the Cleveland Browns and, of course, their situation there going back to the past there with Deshaun Watson. I can't wait. I'm telling you right now, I'm probably not going to cut off my HBO, even though it can be a little bit expensive. That's going to be some good stuff here. Pickle says, Antonio Brown hysteria. Yeah, John Madden had 3 Hall of Fame offensive line on the Raiders. Yeah, I want to have the best line money can buy. They're low-maintenance guys. They're usually family guys. They don't make a lot of noise. They're not divas. And they get the job done. And overall, last and not least, they're necessary. They are necessary. I've read this before in the past. I'll say it again. Look at the teams that are considered good offensive to best offensive line, or teams that's air quotes spent the most on the offensive line. The Eagles, for example, they always seem to make it deep runs in the playoffs. Okay? Just saying. Just saying. Numbers don't lie when it comes to stuff like that. Okay. Oh, where should I go now? Dun, 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 dun. I think I'll stay with more active stuff here. Let's go to the college game. Then I'll end the show on college football game, of course. Then I'll end the show on talking about this Pete Rose documentary, which is really good. Okay? Now, let's see. So there was a new rule got passed in college football, by the way. The scholarship limits. Teams used to be limited to 85 scholarships. The reason why that rule was put in play because of teams like Alabama back in the day. I've heard some of my elders that love college football the years would say an Alabama with Bear Bryant would just stack the team. They would stack the team with 4 and 5 star players, even before that system even came out. So then you got the scholarship limit, went back down to 85. Now scholarships have been pushed up to 105. Okay. You're not going to get the stacking with the transfer portal. That's not going to happen. This helps for more developmental players. I think it's a great thing. You know, I know that Dabo Swinney, go figure, he says, well, I kind of like our walk-on program better. I'm thinking, well, just give them a scholarship, man. Give them a scholarship. I just don't know about Dabo now. I think that he's not willing, and they open up against Georgia, by the way. He may get his rear end handed to him, but they still got a pretty good defense. We'll see. I said this a few years ago. He might take a run at the NFL. And I know if you listen to the way he talks and wholesome guy down home, wants to continue to have the power and everything. I don't know. People can change on the dime when circumstances change. People can change when their circumstances change so much where you feel like you, air quote, need a change of scenery. I wouldn't be surprised if Dabo Swinney didn't go to the NFL in the next year or two. Things are getting a little bit sour for him. But as far as this new rule, totally okay with it. Kudos to college football. Glad to see more players getting scholarships, and that the transfer portal is not going to do anything other than that. Okay. All righty then. So, as I mentioned before, in the past, meaning like last week or so, maybe the week before that, when we had SEC Media Days, time's going by so fast when you get busy like I am. All these weeks seem to run together, folks. By the way, if you didn't get a chance to watch yesterday's program, really good show with Rich Ferris from Cumulus Radio, 1045. Broke some news about Arden Key getting suspended for PEDs. They're looking for an edge rusher go out and check out that show. Really good stuff. Good insight there from my man Rich, who's watching the practices play by play. Back to the college game. Okay. So here's a couple of teams. I don't know how long I'll go over this. Maybe 6, 8 teams. And I'll come back and revisit it. But here's 2 teams that I think that'll make the playoffs and could potentially make a run towards a championship, you know. So one would be Ole Miss. You know, Ole Miss was beat so bad by Georgia last year that I totally had forgotten the fact that they only had 2 losses last year, led by Lane Kiffin. Yeah, Georgia beat them 52-17. Alabama beat them 24-10. But you know, they beat LSU 55-49 last year. They beat a good Auburn team 28-21. They beat Texas A&M. Okay. And they've got their quarterback back. And this guy named Jackson Dart Jr. is going to be back here. And check out these starters coming back. 20 starters, okay? 20 out of 22 starters, 10 on offense, 10 on defense, okay? Not a huge Lane Kiffin fan, but I will say this. He's done better than I thought he would do at Ole Miss. He did better last year than I ever thought he could do at Ole Miss. Because you look at the fact that he played Alabama and Georgia as good as they played. That was a road game at Auburn. Now, that was with Hugh Freeze. Now, we know how good a coach Hugh Freeze is. He's beat Saban multiple times. He was one throw away from beating Saban last year, Hugh Freeze. Okay? So, this Ole Miss team, as I look through their schedule, according to Phil Steele, they have difficulty level 40th ranked schedule. I don't know about that, but that's just a basic. That's just a guesstimate, you know, because sometimes you don't never know what team's going to take off and what team's not. Okay, but they got Kentucky at home. They play at South Carolina. Okay, probably a big win there. They do have to play LSU off of a bye week, okay? Brian Kelly, LSU coach, yeah, he lost a lot of starters, Malik Neighbors being one of them, Jalen Daniels, the quarterback that Kelly ended up getting drafted number 2 overall. I'm sure LSU is going to fix their defense. They play LSU off of a bye week, off LSU's bye week, okay? If both of these teams are undefeated at this point, and they could be, this is October 12th, okay? If that's the case, this will be a night game, and LSU at night is one of the toughest, maybe the toughest place to play in all of college football, all right? And so then they have their off week, and then they got Oklahoma home. I told you I don't have a lot of faith in Brent Venables at Oklahoma. I think they'll beat Oklahoma, no doubt. All right. And then they got to play at Arkansas. Then on November 9th, keep that date in mind. On November 9th, keep that date in mind. Georgia, who probably could still be the number 1 team in the country, they got them at Ole Miss. All right. Now, the issue with Georgia and this Ole Miss team is Georgia, or Ole Miss, is a sandwich game between Tennessee and Florida. And if you're a Georgia fan, you know that Tennessee and Florida are your 2 rivals. especially Florida, but Tennessee, Florida. So Ole Miss has normally been in. Now they don't have the East and West no more. Ole Miss would be the West team. Florida, Georgia people ain't worried about Ole Miss. They could upset Georgia because it's a sandwich game. So keep that in mind. And then they have another bye week, and they play at Florida, then Mississippi State on November 30th. So this team, 2 losses last year. All right. 5 the year before that, and 3 the year before that. This is the 5th year for Lane Kiffin. And he's not having to worry about Nick Saban no more. Go figure. Jim Harbaugh, he's moved on to the NFL. This team, I don't know about winning the SEC, but I think they're going to make the playoff, and they could be a dark horse to make a run in the playoffs. Just to figure out, just to kind of give you a heads up on, who they draw and whatnot. So, Ole Miss Rebels, the running Rebels. Remember, Lane Kiffin had A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf on the same team. A.J. Brown, both of them signed big second contract. 2 beast mode-like receivers on the same team. You got A.J. Brown on the quarterback's right. You got DK Metcalf on the quarterback's left. So the guy knows offense, Can he be a little obnoxious sometimes? Yes. Is that an understatement sometimes? Oh, bleep, yes. Right, Pickles? So this is one of those teams that to keep an eye on. The Ole Miss Rebels in the playoffs. Yes, playoffs. All right. And I'm looking for my other team here. I got to make some notes. Page 88. Woo. Been a little under the weather this week, there, Pickles. I was listening to Rich yesterday, and he said something about Harold Landry. Harold Landry. By the way, if anybody's on Facebook watching me and you've been typing, I'm not seeing anything from Facebook right now. But if you go on YouTube, I can see those comments. I've reached out to StreamYard. I've tried a few things with Facebook, which they're never going to get back to me anyways. But so just to be on the safe side, if you want to communicate with me, check in, go to the Real Sports Scope YouTube channel, and I can get it on there. Okay. Penn State is the other team here. Now, Penn State did something I thought they should do. They fired their offensive coordinator, who was awful, with the capital L. Let me get this guy's name. Penn State is a team that – oh, yeah, I didn't finish my thought there. Harold Landry, and Rich said Harold Landry's got the flu, and that's why he missed some days in practice. So I do think there's something going around here in Tennessee. I do think that there may be something going around here in Tennessee. I don't know. But either way, I'm playing through it. Playing hurt there, people. Playing hurt. But when I get talking about football, everything just kind of takes over here. All right, now, trying to see who they fight. I'll tell you what. I'm going to make sure I got my ducks up. Mike Urich, Penn State fired offense coordinator Mike Urich after the team's second poor performance against a highly ranked opponent. He's been with the Penn State since 2021. They were terrible last year at times. But this team, a lot of good defensive players. James Franklin, not a bad coach. And Pickles thinks it could be another round of COVID. Could be a round of COVID. You just never know, man. But it's supposed to be mild. But, hey, look, head cold's a head cold. All right. Now, Franklin, he's been there 11 years. They beat Ohio State a couple of times. They haven't quite lived up to par. Could he get fired? Possibly. possibly. But this guy, he is a very this Drew Alalar Jr. is supposed to be a 5-star guy. And like I said before, they've moved off their offensive coordinator. And I'm just curious of what they're going to do here. They brought this guy in. I should Andy Kodnicki comes from the Kansas. Comes from Kansas, and Kansas ran a pretty good system last year. Kansas was pretty well coached, so they're probably going to run Alar a little bit. But all that being said, I'm dogging out their offense coordinator. They were 10-3 last year, And if you go back to the Ohio State game, it was a one-score game. It was a one-score game with terrible, terrible schemes there by their coordinator, okay? Left tackle got drafted in the NFL last year. So, Penn State, he went on to the Jets now. But they've got this quarterback back. They got 6 offensive, 7 defensive players here. And, I want to say it was Joe Klatt. He said, listen, this team's in every single game. Whether they're playing Ohio State or Michigan. Michigan beat them 24-15, and that game was close. That game was a lot closer than 24. I watched it, and I was pulling for Michigan because I picked them that week. All right? But you look at their schedule. You got at West Virginia, you got Bowling Green, and I think they'll probably be like 5-0 before they play at USC on October 12th. They got to play UCLA on October. Remember, UCLA and USC, and USC are now in the Big Ten. I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people to swallow, but that is what it is. Okay. And so that's their first big challenge. By the way, Deshaun, I mentioned UCLA earlier. Deshaun Foster's their coach, and he's already gotten off to a rough start. Didn't know what to say at the podium during the media day. He may be a nice guy, decent NFL running back. Either way, UCLA may be a disaster. Now, that game is in Penn State, so I think Penn State will probably run them off the field. Chip Kelly's now an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He left. And so they got this bye week. Then they play at Wisconsin. They'll win that game. Now, they've got Ohio State at home after that bye week. They'll probably lose that Ohio State game. That's another good draw for Ohio State. Then they've got Washington at home. Washington lost a lot of play. Odunze's in the NFL, okay? Michael Penix is playing with the Odunze's with the Bears. Michael Penix now, he's with the Atlanta Falcons, backing them up. Their head coach now, he's down at Alabama. You don't know what you're going to get out of Washington this year, but it's at Penn State, all right? Then they play at Purdue, at Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's a pretty good team. They could potentially lose 2 games. But, if they beat USC, if they play it tight against Ohio State, I think they're going to have a shot to get in. I got them probably losing 1 game. And maybe that 1 game is to maybe 2. Lose Ohio State, and they'll get caught slipping maybe at USC or somebody. But I think they're going to be a really good team. They have been a good team. I just now looked at their 22 schedule. They had 2 losses the year before last, So I expect this team to find a way to get in, just like Ole Miss. And you say, well, it don't seem like really hot takes. These are 2 coaches that came in with high expectations. Lane Kiffin has slightly got above his, because I know he's a good coach and I know he's a good recruiter. He's just the guy you can't trust. You can't trust him long term, and he talks a lot of nonsense. He's kind of annoying. But James Franklin, he's slightly underachieved, okay? But I cannot believe he's already been at Penn State for 11 years. So this is 2 teams, and probably next week I'll give you 2 more teams that I think that'll make the playoffs. All righty then. Yeah, and I just for a side note, folks, Sharon Moore's now the first-year head coach here at Michigan. Michigan's got 2 starters returning. Michigan, remember, 15-0 last year, national championship, very special team. 2 players returning on offense, 5 on defense. Michigan's going to go from the penthouse to the outhouse. But they're still going to be on cloud 9. They won a national championship, you know. They're going to be back to being Michigan again. All righty then. Now, this Pete Rose so HBO, these documentaries are great. And there's more and more documentaries out there nowadays. And I think because the movie business is so bad now, nobody's going to the movie business. People are running out of ideas. You got Marvel movies. I mean, how many Marvel movies can you make? You know, you got these scary movie franchises. I don't know if they do a lot of them now, but, you know, when I was growing up, you got Jason 8, Jason 9. You know, you have I got Fast and Furious 7 recorded. I haven't watched. I've never watched Fast and Furious. It was okay, you know, about, I guess, street racing or whatever. So more and more documentaries have came out. I mentioned the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, the O.J. Simpson documentary, maybe the best. The Eagles documentary. That's a singing documentary, but it's a good documentary. It's one of the best I've ever seen, 3 hours. Now, this one's a 3-part documentary. Okay. And it goes through Pete Rose's life, his ups and downs. We know about a lot of them. Just to educate some of my younger listeners and viewers. He's the all-time hit king. He's got more hits than anybody in Major League Baseball history. All right. His nickname was Charlie Hustle because he hustled. He ran wide open, and he rubbed his teammates the wrong way, but he did. And Pickles, I don't know if you knew this, but him and his teammate, let me make sure I got this right. Him and his, let's see, Johnny Bench did not like each other. The catcher, by the way, if you Google greatest catcher of all time, Johnny Bench's name comes up. If you Google this, Johnny Bench, his name will come up. So 1970, I'm setting the tone for this. People my dad's age and older, some do watch the program. Ray Fosse, Rose, every game serious to Pete Rose. He runs through Ray Fosse in the 1970 All-Star game. He was a rookie, okay? Rossi was a rookie. Went on to play 9 years beforehand. Rose took a lot of criticism for that. A lot of criticism, says he never played right. And Pete Rose said, listen, I took him out to eat before the game, okay? I like Ray, but I'm trying to win the game, right? I took him out to eat. He went on to play 9 more years. And then John Miller says that he was never the same afterwards. Well, the famous John Miller said this, Pickles. Who's John Miller? Longtime sports broadcaster for the San Francisco Giants baseball team. And for some of you in my age group, him and Pete Rose's other teammate at the Reds, Joe Morgan, that used to be Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. That was my summer growing up in the early to mid 90s with those guys. So I did not know that was that big a deal, the Ray Fosse Pickles. So that's what John Miller's saying. All right. Anyways, Pete Rose basically said, listen, he did the way the fans wish every player played, like it was Game 7 in the World Series. Al Michaels, they interviewed him, the famous Al Michaels, on Monday Night Football. Now I think he works with Amazon. He says Pete was an action junkie, that Pete Rose met his wife at River Downs horse track. Go figure. He never knew how to turn it off. Okay. I just mentioned that his egos clashed. His egos clashed with Johnny Bench. Rose says that Johnny Bench was jealous of him because he was more popular. He's a Cincinnati. Think about this, folks. I'm out of Nashville. I would love to have grown up and played quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. He's a Cincinnati native. And their own son comes in and plays like that. Pete Rose. He says, as good as Bench was, the people love me better. That's what Rose says. And it shows him at some kind of function later on in his 80s. Rose is in his 80s now. It shows him at his function, and the person introduces him as Johnny Bench as a joke. And it's like some kind of casino up there in Cincinnati somewhere. Then he grabs a microphone like this, Pickles, and he says, if Johnny Bench were here, this would be half the crowd. Oh, man. So he rubbed a lot of his teammates the wrong way. So he became friends with one of the few only black teammates, Frank Robertson, early on. And him and Frank Robertson was tight. Now, he loved Joe Morgan like a brother. But in 72, they traded for Joe Morgan. Now that I'm looking at my notes. And that set up the Big Red Machine. In 72, they went to the World Series, thought they were going to beat it. And, of course, Oakland won. And he mentioned even during the World Series, his dad was so dedicated to get up early in the morning. His dad's a big part of his life. His dad always got on to him about not hustling out, running out to first base, not hustling on foul balls, not hustling on the infield or on anywhere. He said, hustle, hustle, hustle. His dad but his dad never watched him finish the game because he had to be up for work in the morning. These are just certain little. And then the guy asked him. He said, one of the interviewers said, "What do you think your dad would have did if he knew about your gambling issues?" He says he'd have kicked my butt if he knew I gambled on baseball. But Pete Rose. This guy's had an amazing life, and I'll get to the other stuff. Pete Rose won MVP in 1973. He only had 5 home runs. Pickle said that's he did. He met her at the racetrack. Pickle says, met your wife at the track. It should tell him it was going to be a disaster. You met him at a place like that. So he wins MVP at 73 with 5 home runs. That tells you what else he did everywhere else, stealing bases, whatever, And he talked that there was a fight with Bud Harrelson in the NLCS in 73, Pickles, if you remember that. The game was stopped. People were throwing stuff on the field. And they asked him, they said, was it the fight that really was it that fight that really cost you that World Series against the Mets? He said, no, it's Tom Seaver, man. He just sawed off our bats. You know. But they went on to win. They put it all together. They won in 75. My dad used to tell me that may be the greatest team of all time. The 1975 Cincinnati Reds won 108 games, and they went on to win the World Series over Boston. But this is what people talk about, the Red Sox were cursed. Now I get it, Pickles. Now I get it. We know about Bill Buckner in 1986 where the Mets beat them. Let's go back to 75. In 75, and people my dad's age know this, Boston was up 3-0 in Game 7. I don't know if they went 7 yet. But in the final game, Boston was up 3-0. They gave up a 3-0 lead. And Cincinnati went on to win. And then they went on to win again in 76. I did also make a note here that he of all dates, he broke the hitting record. He later went on and played for the Phillies in 1980, and him and Mike Schmidt became really good friends. Won a World Series with them. But long story short, he goes back to Cincinnati, and on September 11th, now it doesn't have that much meaning for Pete Rose, but September 11th, 1985, he broke Ty Cobb's record for the most hits, and it was probably the longest. You can watch this, folks, on YouTube. That may be in the longest standing ovation ever. That may have been the longest for someone in the middle of the game. And he says once he started thinking about it, started thinking about his dad, whose dad wasn't around at the point. He's crying there. I mean, it was really a good moment there for Pete Rose. But so, and then some of the other things hit with Rose. This documentary, towards the end of his career, things start to go off course for Pete. And there's some things that I didn't know that he was, for one thing, Pete alive all the time. I mean, his name not only be Pete Rose for all I know. He connected with a guy that was trying to make Major League Baseball down in Tampa somewhere. Young guy, he's kind of mentoring him. The guy was playing baseball with his son. Long story short, this is in the documentary. Pete Rose kind of takes this young man under his wing, and this guy later got on steroids, okay, and started working out at Gold's Gym and everything. And they asked Pete Rose, did you ever go to Gold's Gym with this guy? No, I did not go to Gold's Gym with this guy. Then on the documentary, Pickles, they show him at Gold's Gym with the Gold's Gym shirt on. He said, I don't lift weights. It shows him lifting weights. So there's a hint that maybe Rose was also dabbled in steroids, because this guy that I'm talking about, this young man at the time, of course, did do steroids. Okay. And long story short, this guy was also running he was running bets for Rose. Remember, Rose became the manager of the Reds all the way up to 89. All right. And that's everything started going off track for Rose. Then it comes down to him, Major League Baseball looking after him, investigating him. I did not know this, but watching this documentary, but they had enough evidence through this for Rose. He went to prison for tax evasion for 5 months. Then on top of that, the commissioner banned him from baseball. Then he dies. Then another commissioner comes in there. During this 5-month stint in prison, this is something out of a movie. I didn't know this. In 1990, the team he managed went on to win the World Series. Barry Larkin in 1990. Pickles, you remember all that? In 1990. And Rose was just being Rose, man. I mean, he just lied and denied and denied. And finally he said, if I'd have been an alcoholic or a wife beater, they'd have forgave me by now. You know? So he's been trying to get back in ever since. Fox gives him a job in 2017. And somebody said something about him. He was really good, too. He was a good announcer or a good studio guest there, Pete Rose. And somebody said something about during that investigation on a radio show, some prosecutor, former whatever, said that he was messing around with an underage girl in the 70s. And so he sues the guy for some kind of, what do you call it? I forgot it when you're badging, messing up somebody's name or whatnot. And long story short, he loses the job at Fox, because this was middle of that Me Too stuff. So Rose kind of gets in his own way because he probably never should have took it out to the extreme and fought it like that. He'd probably still been announcing games. So now he's post 80. And towards the very end of this thing, he swears. Now, like I said, Rose has been known to lie. He lied forever about betting on baseball. But the thing is, he was in some debt there. There is a little bit of inkling that maybe he did throw some games, But he claims that he hadn't made a bet in 6 months. And he's not going to bet anymore, period. So I'd like to see him get in as a player. But I can understand that I came out of this documentary not feeling sorry for him as much because I know Rose is the kind of guy that will defamation of character. Yeah, that's it. So Rose kept pushing it, and it just one thing led to another. And Rose is like, it's in the 70s, man. Why are y'all asking me about? I mean, so he's a bit of a Greek tragic, I guess. He's constantly doing these card shows and signing but he still does that stuff. But he still draws a good crowd. He's a good storyteller. He still is the all-time hit king. And like a lot of us, he's just got his flaws. It's a good documentary. It's a good, especially if you could just appreciate great sports in general. Charlie Hustle, the Pete Rose story. I think it's like a 4-part documentary, if I'm not mistaken. But it was one I liked about the all-time hit king. He did play the game the right way, playing all out. And he's right about that. I'll say this before I go. We as fans want you to play your guts out. I hate it when I see a professional athlete mail it in, I don't like everything a guy like Westbrook does, Russell Westbrook with the now with the Denver Nuggets, but I do like the fact that he plays all out. That was what was special about Pete Rose. So I don't know. Hopefully they can work it out. I doubt it. But if he dies, don't put him in after he dies, you know. But anyways, if you like the show, share the show, folks. We are out of time. I'm hoping to have Carlos Mad New Yorker Chavez on tomorrow. He's been good about coming on Thursdays. We'll get this show on the road. If not, we'll get more into the college game because I got a lot to talk about in the college game. We're 1 month away, folks, from the start of Labor Day weekend. The Florida and Miami, one of many great games. Clemson, Georgia. So we're real close to the college game starting. Of course, obviously the week later, you got the NFL. You got the big kahuna. So have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, here on the Real Sports Scope.